So neuron is also called as nerve cell. Neuron is otherwise called as nerve cell. Our human body is made up of trillions of cells. Okay, trillions of cells. Among these trillions of cells, you divide the cells into different types based on their function, based on their work they do. For example, kidneys have cells which performs the function of filtration. So filtration function is performed by nephrons. You have blood cells, red blood corpuscles, which does the function of oxygen and carbon dioxide transport. Cardiac cells, you have pacemaker cells. Okay, same way, nerve cell is a type of cell which does the function of carrying the messages. Okay, so what is the function of a nerve cell or a neuron is to carry the messages. Our body is made up of trillions of cells. We divide the cells based on their function they do into different types. For example, nephrons, red blood corpuscles, and pacemaker cells. So the function, first we have to understand the function of neuron or nerve cell. What does it do is to carry messages. Okay, so carrying the messages means from where to where. So there must be a place from where it has to start and where it has to end. Okay, so carrying means it has to start at one place, it has to end at another place. It carries messages from the environment. Okay, when I say environment, I say it is of two types. So that is external environment, that is which is present around us, and internal environment, that is within our body. Okay, so this neuron has to carry messages from the environment, that is from the external environment which is present around us, and from the internal environment which is present within the body. So there are some changes taking place around us as well as within our body. Okay, so these changes are sensed by the neuron. So now the neuron has to pick the messages, that is what are the changes that has happened in the surrounding. It has to deliver it to brain, which is the central commanding unit, central commanding organ. Okay, yes, or sensed by the neuron, and the neuron carries the messages and delivers it to the brain. Now the brain will read the message, or it will interpret the message, and it will give an output that what has to be carried out according to the changes in the environment. Okay, what has to be carried out, this is carried by another neuron and the action is carried out. Okay, so the neuron which senses the changes in the environment, it may be external environment or internal environment, that is called as afferent neuron. These neurons are called as afferent neurons, which carries the information. It gives to the brain, and now the brain reads the message, or it interprets the message, and it decides what has to be carried out, and that action is that command is carried out by another neuron, which is called as efferent neuron. Okay, study the structure of neuron. The neuron is made up of three parts. A cell body, this is the center, the cell body or soma, you call it as soma or cell body of the neuron. The finger-like projections are called as, all these finger-like projections which is trying to get the impulses or the messages is called as dendrites, and you have a lengthy part which you call as axon. Okay, so impulses or signal means nothing but messages. Impulses, signal, action potential are nothing but the messages which is carried by the neuron. So first part is the dendrite. These are all short fibers. Okay, these are all short fibers, very very small, projecting out of the cell body. This is the cell body. So these dendrites, they project out of the cell body. They branch repeatedly. It forms like a network. Okay, so it undergoes branching again and again. So that is called as repeated branching. It contains Nissel's granules. These granules which you see, small dot-like structures, are called as Nissel's granules. They are present in dendrites and throughout the cytoplasm of the cell. Next, what is the function of dendrites? It receives impulses and transmit the impulses towards the cell body. Impulse means nothing but messages. Okay, the message which it receives from the surrounding environment, the changes which it sees, okay, the changes which the neuron finds out, it converts that into impulse and it delivers to the cell body. So it receives impulses, transmits to the cell body. Now coming to the cell body or soma, you have nucleus in the center which controls the entire neuron. Okay, nucleus controls the entire neuron. This is the cytoplasm. This cytoplasm contains Nissel's granules. This Nissel's granules is an important MCQ. These granules are nothing but aggregates, means group. Okay, group of rough endoplasmic reticulum. RER is rough endoplasmic reticulum plus free ribosomes and polysomes. Okay, so Nissel's granules are aggregates or group of rough endoplasmic reticulum plus pre-ribosomes plus polysomes. What is the function of Nissel's granules? They help in protein synthesis. So function of Nissel's granules is protein synthesis. They are made up of rough endoplasmic reticulum, free ribosomes and polysomes. This is one important MCQ. Dendrites, they are short fibers which projects from the cell body and it branches repeatedly. It also contains Nissel's granules. What is the function of dendrites? It is to receive the impulses and it has to transmit to the cell body. Okay, so this is the beginning of neuron. The finger like projection which is present at the beginning of neuron is dendrites. Next you have cell body that contains, what are the structures present in cell body? Cytoplasm, granular bodies, that is Nissel's granules, and mitochondria, then nucleus. Function of nucleus is to control the entire neuron. Next comes the axon, this lengthy part. Okay, this is a long fiber which is branched at the distal end. You should understand the meaning of distal end. Okay, this is the cell body. The part which is close to the cell body is called as proximal end and the part which is away from the cell body is called as distal end. Okay, so the part, again I will repeat it, the part of the neuron which is close to the cell body is the proximal end and which is away from the cell body is called as distal end. So the axon, see, it is running through the length. So the axon is the long fiber which is branched. It is, see, there are small branches at the distal end. So axon is the long fiber which is branched at the distal end. In related to biology, you have to study each and every point as an MCQ. Don't leave any point because each and everything will be an important MCQ. Function of axon is to transmit impulses away from the cell body to a synapse or neuromuscular junction. So the impulses are received by the dendrites, it is transmitted to the cell body, and here the action, this is called as the axon hillock. This is the place where the action potential develops. The action potential travels throughout the axon fiber and it reaches the ends of the axon. So it transmits, the function of the axon is to transmit the impulse from the cell body to a synapse or neuromuscular junction. This means the junction between two neurons. Here there will be another neuron. So the impulse, the action potential will travel throughout the axon. It reaches the synapse, that is the junction between two neurons. This axon, the long fiber, is covered by a sheath called as myelin sheath. Sheath means a covering. So this myelin sheath is produced by Schwann cells. This is the one of the important MCQ. Myelin sheath is formed by Schwann cells. The covering surrounding the axon is called as myelin sheath. So depending on the presence of myelin sheath, they divide the neuron into two types, myelinated and non-myelinated. Myelinated means which contains myelin sheath. What is the use of myelin sheath? It increases the speed of the signal. If the neuron has myelin sheath, the signal will pass very quickly. If the neuron doesn't have a myelin sheath, they are called as non-myelinated nerve fibers. Okay, so this myelinated nerve fibers are present in spinal and cranial nerves. Non-myelinated nerve fibers are present in autonomous and somatic nerves. Myelin sheath is formed by Schwann cell, very important MCQ. So in between the gap between two sheaths, okay, this is, see, can you see a dip between the bulged portion? This gap is called as nodes of Ranvier. So the gap between two adjacent myelin sheath is called as nodes of Ranvier. The signal will jump between the gaps and it will pass very quickly in the case of myelinated nerve fibers. Next you have axon terminal. Terminal means the end of the axon. Can you see the end of the axon? The axon ends here, it branches and the ends are formed by a small bulb-like structure called a synaptic knob. Okay, these bulb-like structures are called as synaptic knobs. These synaptic knob contains synaptic vesicles which contains neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters means they are the chemical messengers which is going to relay the signal to other neuron. Okay, so synaptic knob contains synaptic vesicles. Synaptic knob contains synaptic vesicles. Inside the synaptic vesicles, it contains neurotransmitters which are the chemical messenger. So from the beginning we will revise. Dendrites, they are short fibers, repeated branching, projecting out of the cell. They contain Nissel's granules, receives impulses, transmits to the cell body. Next you have Nissel's granules. They are aggregates, that is groups of rough endoplasmic reticulum, free ribosomes and polysomes. Function is to perform protein synthesis. Cell body contains cytoplasm, Nissel's granules, mitochondria and nucleus. Nucleus controls the entire neuron. Axon, this is the long fiber. It has got a branched distal end. The function of axon is to transmit the impulse from the cell body and it should relate to a synapse, that is the junction between two neurons, or it can relay the impulse to a neuromuscular junction, the junction formed between a neuron and a muscle. Next you have nodes of Ranvier, that is the gap between two adjacent myelin sheaths. The myelin sheath is formed by Schwann cells. Depending on the presence or absence of myelin sheath, they are divided into myelinated and non-myelinated nerve fibers. In myelinated nerve fibers, the speed of the signal will be very quick. Spinal and cranial nerves contain myelinated nerve fibers. Autonomous and somatic nervous system contains non-myelinated nerve fibers. The axon terminal contains a small bulb-like structure. They are called as synaptic knobs. This synaptic knob contains synaptic vesicle, means small fluid-filled structure. So synaptic vesicles contain neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are nothing but chemical messengers, and depending on the based on number of axon and number of dendrites, neurons are of three types: unipolar, bipolar, multipolar. Unipolar means cell body with only one. Uni means one. So it is easy to remember, cell body with only axon, no dendrites here. Bipolar, one axon and one dendrite. Multipolar, one axon and two or more dendrites. Examples of unipolar are embryonic stage. Bipolar neurons are seen in retina of the eye. Multipolar neurons are seen in cerebral cortex.